certified arborist in Bloomington, Indiana, and today I'm hunting root flares. Yeah, they're not going anywhere. They're easy to find unless they're hiding under a mulch volcano. Anyway, a root flare is where the roots of a tree meet the stem of a tree. And in a way, I think this is the most important part of the tree. All the water that a tree is going to use has to pass through the root flare. The big movements of sap are going to pass through the root flare twice a year. The root flare is where we see a lot of a tree's strength. These roots, and actually we can call them buttress roots, they provide the kind of strength a tree needs to stay upright during high wind. In fact, root flares develop best when a young tree is exposed to wind. So that it's that movement back and forth, of a trunk that causes, the root flare to develop. And anyway, there's so many things about the root flare. But anyway, what primarily I just wanted to talk about today, like why a root flare is really important. So just with the kind of landscaping practices that have developed for some unknown reasons, the concept of volcano mulching, I think a lot of consumers know it's a bad thing, yet it still is practiced. So the reason why volcano mulching is bad is it covers the root flare, and that in a tree's mind is akin to planting a tree too deep. And there's a interesting and yet sad physiological response that trees have to being too deep, and that is to develop girdling roots. So a girdling root is any root that encircles the trunk of a tree. And over time, as the roots become, as the trunk of the tree grows outwards, those girdling roots will begin to slow down the sap. They can bruise the vascular system. And, when the sap is slow to move either up or down, up in the spring, down in the fall, that can slow down a lot of other physiological processes that a tree needs to perform. It can slow down their response to insects and disease. It can, inhibit spring bud break. And like when that happens over the course of a few years, because once you have girdling roots, you tend to have more and more and more. So when we have girdling roots, that can begin what is called the spiral of decline. There's a lot of things that can cause the spiral of decline, but it's a process where, in terms of a girdling root situation, not all of the stored resources of a tree are able to get up to power out the spring bud break. So then we have fewer live buds for the growing season, and then that means we have fewer branches. Fewer branches means fewer leaves. Fewer leaves means less photosynthesis, so we have less carbohydrates to store in the fall. So, and then if we still have the girdling roots, less of those resources are going to be able to go back to the roots to store for winter. So then we have less, sap to get up and power up buds in the next year. And it just becomes this cycle of less and less and less and less. And what you do see more of is dead branches. So, and this is very common to see both in young trees and older trees, especially trees that are, are mowed, have lawns mowed near them, or that have mulch too high, or are planted too deep. So, kind of usually, I think in order for people to not feel too overwhelmed by, various garden tasks, if you're gonna think about root flares at any time of the year, I think the fall, going into fall, is the best time to think about it. So we can take, just a handy dandy little hand spade, and you can use one of these to just double check and pull some soil and mulch and plants away, and we just want to make sure we're free to grow, not like in Canada, but we just want to make sure there's nothing slowing down the root system of our tree going into fall. Another reason why fall is a nice time to think about this is, during the summer, if we have had any really dry weather and the ground is hard, loosening up the soil a little bit can really help the tree to be able to expand, because that's what happens is, so the wood of a tree is going to grow twice a year. When you look at rings of a tree, after it's cut, you see one area of larger ring with a corresponding smaller ring. So we have our spring growth and fall growth. So, a lot of people are familiar with spring growth because that's what brings us flowers and leaves. But the fall growth is typically done in the roots. And it's another reason why planting in the fall is awesome, because a plant's roots are going to grow in the fall. Having that soil nice and loose and free of mulch and excess soil is going to set your tree up to grow quicker. In fact, sometimes of the year you may actually notice your tree blowing bark. Some trees are really known for this, like sycamores, and some dogwoods. In fact, there have been a couple dogwoods I've worked on. Pagoda dogwoods are especially known for their peeling bark. It's kind of one of their cool features. And, you know, I've worked on a few that have had girdling roots. And when we remove those, this time of the year, the bark will just blow. So, anyway, for more detailed pictures on, you know, root flares and managing them, there's a really great article online by Clemson University that I tell all my customers about. It's called Show Me Your Root Flare. Show Me Your Root Flare. And it's a great example of, you know, how we can help trees grow in an urban area. So anyway, be kind to your root flares, and they'll be kind to you. That's the number one thing you can do to keep your trees safe, is to be good to that root flare. So thanks. Have a great day.